A pesar de los avances en materia de política de género, todos los días debemos preguntarnos ¿qué más podemos hacer mujeres y hombres para impulsar con objetividad la equidad en las empresas? Busquemos la respuesta de la mano de nuestra siguiente conferencista.
Tacy Byham, CEO de Development Dimension International, empresa de liderazgo global que promueve el enfoque sistémico de la paridad de género y la mentalidad inclusiva en los líderes. Es una firme defensora del empoderamiento de las mujeres y fue la oradora inaugural de la conferencia Women in Technology. Su TED Talk, Dirige como una chica, tiene gran éxito en la web. Fundó el Comité de Líderes por el Avance Laboral de las Mujeres en The Conference Board y el Women's Business Collaborative, y es coautora de Your First Leadership Job.
Greetings. I am joining you today from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I am very pleased to be with you. We are living in a COVID world, and the pandemic is causing organizations to rethink and reframe leadership. And they need new and novel ideas to come up with breakthrough ideas, breakthrough innovations. And that comes from diversity of thought and diversity of thinking within their leadership pipeline. Now, women have been traditionally underrepresented in the leadership ranks. And so today we're going to explore how you play a role in helping accelerate women yourself, accelerate women who are your peers in the organization with whom you work. For perspective, today's presentation is going to be about 50 minutes, and there will be no Q&A at the end that will be live. However, please use the chat function as I go along today. Enter any questions, and I will be happy to get back to you at a later time. So let's get us started, and please enjoy the session. Today's session is called Lead Like a Girl, Power Moves for Women and Their Allies to Ignite Impact. Now, I want to start us off with this incredible inspiration for me, which was a video. The video was called Like a Girl, and it was put out by Always, which is a Procter & Gamble product. I'm going to spend 30 seconds with you all and show you this video.
Hi, Erin. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. My hair. Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl.
Aww.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Throw like a girl. Fight like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run fast as you can.
Love that commercial. It gets me every time. I've watched it over and over again with audiences. I typically ask the question about what were they feeling? What emotions were they having? And those emotions typically run the gambit. They run the gambit from feelings of being very sad because it depicts how confidence plummets for girls as they go through puberty. It also has people feeling frustrated because why is it that the word girl had to be anything that was less than strong and powerful and have negative connotations associated with it? It also had me feeling inspired because it made me think about not how you only act like a girl, but how you lead like a girl. And we need to make sure that women have the right seat at the table and are able to have a powerful say without any negative connotations. And that's a role that each and every one of us can play. So what does this look like today in today's world? Because leadership right now is very different. During this time of crisis, we've got women who are in the essential workers category. And in fact, 77% of those key jobs are women in healthcare and personal services. So they're being affected. Here's another one. This is from Working Mother Media that came out recently. It shows that leadership is seen in everywhere. And women that are particularly having a struggle as we move through COVID. They have anxiety. They have stress, and that is spilling over to the workplace, with 81% of working mothers indicating their ability to engage effectively at work has been negatively impacted. And here's another one. You might have seen ages ago, about two years ago, a little clip of a BBC dad who was deep in his commercial, and the little boy just kept running into the office and had to be pulled out, never skipped a beat. Well, it happened again recently, and this was a young child coming in while her mother was being interviewed on the BBC. And what was so interesting to me is that the interviewer started to engage with the child. The child said, "Oh, what's the man on the screen's name?" And so that depicts how we are changing in this world of going virtual, because we're used to the odd cat or the child or the telephone interruptions along the way, and even where we lose technology. This is all a very different pathway, but it's one that women are having to navigate. And so each of us plays a role in the future for women. In particular, we want to make sure that women are set up for success so they can accelerate appropriately. So here you see a pipeline of leadership for women. I'm going to point out that the number is about 57% of women graduate from college. Women currently make 53% of the workforce. And as they move all the way up to the executive suite, you see those numbers diminishing to them being only about 22%. Now, if we take a look at CEOs, well, CEOs are really interesting, because CEOs who are women are often more thought of than like shark attacks. And let me tell you why. Shark attacks actually occur relatively infrequently. However, the media makes such a big news out about them that you tend to think that they're far more common than they are. And this is the same thing for women CEOs. When you ask people, what do you think the percentage of women CEOs are in the Fortune 500? Well, people tend to say, I think probably a quarter of them are women. That's not right at all. It's 7.4%. And we are at a high watermark. We were 6.7% last year. And so this is indicating right here that we have work to do. But here's the other thing that I think is so important. The numbers that you see here on this screen, despite good intentions, despite some effort in this area, these numbers have not substantially changed in over 10 years. Now, what do we all need to do? We all need to play a role as an ally. We need to be that partner who utilizes their power and status in a variety of ways, as a supporter, as an advocate, as a disruptor for gender diversity. And that is going to be a part of what we will be doing today. And this is important because this is not simply a woman's issue. This is truly a business issue, because study after study has shown that the more women you have, the better financial performance your organization has. So here's some data that DDI has from our global leadership forecast. We compared of 2,500 global organizations, the top performing financial organizations in the bottom. And what you can see is the top performing financial organizations have twice as many women as the bottom. The other thing that I think is really interesting and unique from our study is the fact that we don't tell you just that there is a difference in numbers. We tell you what is it you get when you have an organization that is rich with female leadership. So the more female leadership you have, you create a collaborative environment, 2 times more, an environment where people are more likely to have synergies across departments, as well as an environment where you are 1.5 times more likely to have a growth culture. And a growth culture is one that is sticky, where people stay engaged, where they want to grow their careers. So this is all to the benefit of the top performing organizations. And this is what you get with an organization that is heavy in female leadership. So this is super interesting because I told you that as an ally, we all have a role. Well, we have a role because bias is everywhere. Bias in objective decision making is missing in many times that are related to talent acquisition, who you bring into the organization, who you put into leadership positions, who you nominate to put on committees, who you put in for selection, promotion, succession. Bias is everywhere. And this is the part where, as an ally, we can be a disruptor for the future. So why is this happening? I often get asked, well, people tend to say the difference is it all comes down to the fact that there is a fundamental difference between men and women. Men and women in what they bring to the table. Men and women in the skills that they have. And so clearly there must be some things that men are stronger at skills-wise than women that is making them succeed and excel all the way up the leadership pipeline. Well, let me take a look at this, because what DDI does as a company is we take our clients' top performers. We help them select. If there's two individuals, you can't decide who you should be as your next emerging executive. We will help you have a rough understanding of who these individuals are. And I can definitively tell you that based on our assessments that you should hire candidate A over candidate B. Now, why is this? What we do is put them through a rigorous process, which is called an acceleration center. And this acceleration center is a simulation. So think about simulations you know of, like flight simulators. What we do is, in a flight simulator, you put a pilot in and you see if they can fly the plane, take it off during adverse conditions, be able to get that safely onto the ground. We want to know that they can perform. We want to see their behavior in action. So we do the same thing for these budding executives. In fact, we do it for leaders at all levels. And what we do is we put them into a simulation and we see how they coach, how they negotiate, how they put together a business plan and focus on business performance. Well, what we have done is pull our data from the past 10 years and over 10,000 representations of leadership. And we do find some differences. I'm going to highlight something right here. What I've highlighted is the column around cultivating networks. So let's think about that, networking. What we see is that if you're good at networking, you're more likely to be found in finance and insurance and in retail. Those are the stronger industries for networking. But if you work in heavy manufacturing or industrial, networking's not as strong for you. So there are differences across industries. What kind of differences do we get when we take a look at women versus men? Well, I would be asking you right now, if we were doing this live, what do you think are the differences? What do you think women are stronger at and men are stronger at? And I typically get answers like this. I get answers that say women are stronger at communication, building teams, planning and organizing. So a bunch of the soft skills. You also get answers that men are stronger at negotiation, strategy, delegating, which have been said to be the harder skills. So think for yourself for a moment. Do you agree with these? Bet you do. I mean, I've heard around the world, these are typically the types of responses that we get here. But the issue is, when we take a look at our data from over 10,000 leaders from 10 years, is this really true? Is this a skill difference? And the answer is no. This is a fallacy. There is no skill difference in the skills that men and women in aggregate bring to the table. Women are just as strong as performers in negotiating, strategy, and delegation, and men can be strong in communication, building teams, and planning and organizing. So this fallacy of perpetuating that women are better at this and men are better at that might be holding women back. And this is a strong challenge that we as allies need to disrupt. Because next time you hear somebody saying something about, well, I would nominate her, but ... ask yourself about what valid objective source they are using to make that decision. So therein lies the skill gap fallacy, and I want you to make sure that you're breaking through that as we move forward. So speaking of moving forward, mention to you that the title of this speech is Lead Like a Girl, Power Moves. Now, what I'm going to do to you today is introduce you to 4 different moves that you as a female leader or you as an ally can help do to ignite the impact of the women around you. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And in particular, I'm going to make sure that each one of those sessions for you, the power moves all close with some wisdom, some strength about what you will be able to take away with that is very practical. And in fact, at the very end, I'm going to give you a heads up that I'm going to ask that you write in the chat, what is it that you are taking away? What wisdom is one thing that you will either do differently yourself, or one wisdom that you will use to disrupt or be support or advocate for women as an ally? So get prepared with these wisdoms as we go through here. I'm going to start us off with a story. This particular story is, for me, it's about a little over 10 years old. And I was earlier in my career, and I was tagged to be part of an R&D incubator. And in that role, we were sanctioned to create a new product and solution for DDI. And I was tagged as the leader. I was given a team of 3 individuals underneath me. And those 3 individuals were 2 women who were older than me. They actually had more wisdom and more seasoned and more expertise than I did. But I was stepping in as their leader, and I was really glad to have them on the team. And we also had a new gentleman who was coming in from the outside with outside expertise. So really glad to have him. So what we were doing was commissioning what the scope of our project was. We were doing client interviews to define what problem we needed to solve. We then started defining that, getting the sanctioning from our executive team inside of DDI. And we were building, and each one of us had teams underneath us. And so here I am managing all of these parts and pieces, giving executive updates to the senior leadership team meetings that were occurring, updating with the president and the CEO on a regular basis and the head of marketing. I had a bunch of Gantt charts. I had everything rolling underneath me. It was exciting. It was engaging. And we were doing a lot of human-centered design, which means we take the outside perspective from our clients, and I was off with our clients testing a few things for the day. I came back that night and saw something on my computer, which was the internal launch. So about a week earlier, I had been called into a television studio, and we had made some videos. Myself and my whole team had made videos with the head of marketing that were about to launch the product. And an internal launch is important because it gets everybody inside the company super excited before the idea goes out there. So I hit play, and what happens? The first face that you see on the screen introducing you to our brand new product was not me as the leader of this team, as the leader of the R&D, but it was the one man who was on our team. And I have to tell you, I almost fell on the floor. I felt like the rug was pulled out from underneath me. And that was because what I came to understand is while I was busy doing all this work, he was busy going around with senior leaders and saying, once this is finished in the R&D incubator, I really would like to lead this. And so he became the first face that everybody saw. To every single one of my peers in the company, they thought that he was already the knighted gentleman who would take over and become vice president once it went out of R&D. This was a big job. There was a lot there. So the next day when I got back to the office, I went into our president's office and I talked to him. And I had put together my business case. I said why I really earned the job, what I knew from past mistakes that I was going to bring into this, on the projects I had from before, the networks I had. I sold myself and I got it. And it was really interesting because out of that was the greatest growth experience that I've ever had. And it set me up for the job I am right now, which is CEO of DDI. So for that, I am forever grateful for having that opportunity. But here's the thing. I almost missed it. I mean, I almost missed the job because I was sitting on the left of this continuum, waiting for good things to come, versus being on the right, stopping and asking for what I wanted. So I'm going to ask you to play along with me right now. I'd like you to think for a second, where do you personally think you fit on this continuum? Are you more like a 4 or a 5 on the right, where you consistently ask for what you want? Or are you more on the left with a -5 or a -4, where you're waiting for good things to come? So pick that number in your head. You can even write it down on a piece of paper in front of you. Okay, great. Now I want you to pick a second number, which is, where do you want to be on this continuum? What would that number be? Okay, I bet you got it. So now I want you to think, if I were to ask you to raise your hand right now and tell me if you are 2 or more points away from where you would want to be, would you be raising your hand? Would you? I know I would have. Well, I can tell you, when I do this with live audiences, about 70% of the people say they are not where they want to be on the continuum. So this leads us to the first power move, which is to ask for what you want, to declare yourself. And the wisdom here is pretty simple, but really powerful. The first is declare. Don't defend. If you recall, I said, I went in and declared that I wanted the job. I went in with my information, with my stars, with my dossier that showed that I earned the job. I didn't say, well, I really should have the job, or I worked really hard for it. I said I earned it and I asked for it. And here's what's so interesting. Our president at the time, who is a wonderful man, he said, gosh, Tacy, I thought you were really happy in the R&D incubator. I didn't even know that you wanted it. So that point right there shows you that I could have almost missed this. So let's carry on with that. It's part of asking for what you want in your career, whether it is work-life balance, promotions, assignments, opportunities, and salaries. So let's pick on that last one, salaries. So people typically say that women aren't very strong in negotiation. And in fact, in Pittsburgh here, we have a wonderful university, Carnegie Mellon University. And they did a study that showed that they took graduates who were master's degree graduates. They all got jobs. And they asked them about a year later, did you negotiate your salary? So no training, nothing, but they just asked, think back, did you negotiate your salary? Well, 57% of the men negotiated their salary. Bet you thought that would have been higher, right? And only 7% of the women negotiated their salary. So that tells you there is a huge gap. And what Carnegie Mellon went on to do is now they train every single graduate in negotiation. And now there is absolutely no difference between men and women in negotiation. So this is absolutely critical. And it's so important because you don't even know sometimes that you need to negotiate. I have a family friend, and her daughter, Katie, was graduating from college, and she was getting a job in Washington, D.C. Great place, but a little more expensive than Katie was getting in the salary. And she had a job opportunity. And so I offered to have coffee with Katie. And I said, well, before you take the job, let me talk about how to negotiate the salary. So you've got a little more wiggle room when you live in Washington, D.C. The thing is, after we talked for an hour and we had numbers and all this stuff, the main thing is I had her work on the words that she would say over the telephone to negotiate this salary. And she stopped me and she said, Tacy, do I sound okay? And I said, of course you do. And she said, here's the thing. I am so grateful to this company for giving me a job that I don't want to sound greedy. So right there, she was talking herself out of the ask. And I said, no, Katie, you don't sound greedy to all at me. You sound confident, and I'm glad you're declaring yourself, and you sound like somebody I would want to hire. Guess what? She did get that job, and she's been there, and she's excelling, and she's getting a master's degree. And keep tabs on Katie because she's doing great. So it's been a fun ride, and it all comes down to, again, this first power move, which is declare yourself. Now, I want to point out one other thing. On each one of these wisdom areas, I'm going to bring up something to amplify as an ally, what you can do to amplify. And so one of the things you have to do sometimes is nudge them along. So people don't know that they could ask. People don't know that they are ready for that next jump in their career. And as an ally, that's important for us to help push people into the right opportunity. So let's move on to our second power move, which is radiating confidence. And with that, I'm going to show you another video that talks about the power of body language in radiating confidence.
Okay, I have everything set up. You will have all of your films, your favorite scrub nurse. What is happening?
I'm being a superhero.
Okay.
There's a scientific study that shows that if you stand like this in superhero pose for just 5 minutes before a job interview or a big presentation or a really hard task, you will not only feel more confident, you will perform measurably better.
Seriously?
Seriously. You feel it?
We're superheroes.
We are superheroes.
All right. So I bet you recognize that was Grey's Anatomy. And what that was power posing by Amy Cuddy. Now, Amy Cuddy is a Harvard researcher. She has the #2 TED Talk on TED. And so I encourage you to listen to that if you haven't seen it already. And what she shows is the act of stepping back and power posing actually has an impact on your performance. Now, I don't know if you've ever power posed before, but let's participate. Nobody is around. You're probably watching this all by yourself someplace. So stand up with me, okay? So stand up, and we're going to hit our hands on our hips like Wonder Woman, like a superhero, and power pose. What you do is hold this for a minute or two and think about what you're focusing on, what you want to accomplish. So what Amy has found is this action of making yourself big and doing this before you have a difficult conversation, an important presentation, a negotiation, will have a measurable impact on you. What it does is it reduces your anxiety and it inspires leadership. And what Amy shows, and you can sit back down, as I will, what Amy shows is that this is not only faking it till you make it, it's fake it till you become it. Because repeating this over and over again actually comes out from fake confidence into real confidence that others see. And I think it's one of these reasons why I like my Katrina so much. Because as I think about it, she is standing there power posing for me every single day. And so this is an important thing, body language, critically important to our trajectory in making sure that we can radiate confidence. With that in mind, another important time to make sure that you are radiating confidence is during an interview. Now, I'm not going to have you have an interview, but I want you to reflect on this interview question. So think in your mind if an interviewer was to ask you the question on the screen. Give me an example of a time when a team or group of which you were the leader accomplished its goals. So pretty much give me a success story. What would you say? What do you think you would say? You got your success story? Well, here's the thing. I've done this experiment all the time, and far too often, when I ask what pronoun was used more frequently during the interview when you respond to that question, well, women tend to overuse the pronoun of we versus own it as the leader and use the pronoun I. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit here because this gets us into the first bit of radiating confidence wisdom in that words matter. So I would suggest that you use I language and as an ally, encourage women to own it and use I language more. Now, I am not saying take all the credit. I recognize that there is a lot of advice that we should not be, as a team member, always simply hogging the limelight. But I would say that in the story I told you about my R&D incubator, I was the leader. I accomplished the following. We won the company award together for what we accomplished. So I led the team and we won the award. So to me, it's a balance of the two, but make sure you don't simply say, well, we do this and we do this and we do this, because people are not seeing the importance of you inside of the problems you're solving, you as a leader. I language is important, and men use it far more frequently than women. So we all need to start to own that. Well, here's another. We need to be owning things like saying I know versus I hope and I feel and I think. So here's an example. I'm going to tell you that I know you are going to leave this session with some wisdom. I am not saying I hope you leave this session with some wisdom. Much more confident, much more declarative when you use the phrase I know. Some things we should stop saying as well. Let's stop saying the words that are on this screen. The first three particularly get me because they are apologies. I might be wrong here. Sorry to ask. I'm not a math person. People are fixating on that and not even on what you're about to say next. And in fact, we should never use the phrase sorry. We should get that one way out of there. Let's go to the last one. I just wanted to check in on. How often do you do that when you're on the phone, on a Zoom call, on a Teams call, or you're even starting an email? And one of the first things you say is, I just wanted to check, how's that report coming? Is it going to be ready for Friday? Completely different than saying, hey, what's the status of the report? Will it be ready on Friday? The just is a softening that we don't need. And it's one that women use 3 to 4 times more often than men. So let's get more declarative and let's get these things out of our language, and let's not apologize our way into everything. So by the way, you probably say, sorry, I'm so late in getting back to you on this email or whatever. To get rid of that, say, thank you for your patience. These things will be making you come off as more confident when you strike them from your language. Now, the last one I want to point out is what we can do as allies. Oftentimes, we can be in a meeting and you can have people around you who said an idea, particularly women, and that idea got talked over or lost, or even worse, is then repeated later by a man who takes the credit. So what we should do is amplify the messages that the women are saying in the first place. So help it go back to her and get her credit by saying things like, as Beth pointed out, or Rachel, it seems like you wanted to make a point on this topic, Or I remember that Stacy had a great idea to solve that problem. Because truly, words do matter. With that, I'm going to move us into our third power move for igniting impact, and that has to do with spectacular failures. So I don't know about you all, but I certainly have had some spectacular failures. I mean, sometimes they're small, sometimes they hurt, because like you might have had an email that was not intended for somebody and they got forwarded to them. And they were on the distribution list, and then they actually know, as opposed to you directly going to them, a piece of feedback that came about in a roundabout way. And that hurts. And that is not courageous. And that's not who you are, but you think of that as a failure. Or here's another way. Let's go to the other side where another story for me is I was part of a project team, and I was a high-flying consultant on this one team. I got moved into a different project team that I didn't know everything as in and out as I did before. Well, I had to quote something for a client. I used the wrong number when I quoted them. The client had to love me because they had a steal in the services they had from us. And over the next 6 months, my team would have the monthly reviews of the product profitability. And the project that I underquoted, it kept being at the bottom of all of our projects. And it was devastating. And listen, my boss said, well, did you learn something from that? And I said, yes, I absolutely did. And I never, ever made that mistake again. But that's why this failure is so important. In fact, I like to think about failure not as a fail as a 4-letter word, but as a 4-letter acronym, with each letter standing for something, with F being first, A being attempt, I being in, and L being learning. First attempt in learning. So it's not a failure, it's that first attempt. So failure is about not failing, but failing forward. And this is also critical for every single one of us, because guess what? We are here because we are high performers. We actually feel pretty cozy and good in the place where we are landing right now. And we don't always want to take those risks, get out of our comfort zone, do something different that is going to help propel us into learning something new. And there would be failure along the way, but we are going to learn and accelerate through that. But again, we're high performers and we're feeling cozy sometimes. So this is when we need to nudge others to take that leap, help them get out of their comfort zones, and we need to ourselves put on a different mindset here. And that's what I want to talk about here. Here you see a fixed thought or fixed mindset versus a growth thoughts or growth mindset. This is made popular, of course, by Carol Dweck, who is the developmental psychologist. And so if you have a fixed mindset about who you are and what you can accomplish, some of the things that you see on the left in the gray clouds are what's going on. So you feel if I succeed, well, I feel if others succeed, then I feel threatened because I'm the one who's supposed to be succeeding. When I feel frustrated, I give up. I feel that it's my innate abilities that determine everything about me. Or think about it if you're a parent. If you're constantly telling your child they're smart, they're smart, they're smart, but then all of a sudden they don't do so well, then they have this fixed mindset about themselves, but I thought I was smart. And then they want to give up. So instead, you need to focus, think about as a parent, not on what they did, but who they are and the hard work they put into it. So you talk about how much they've studied and how proud you were of that process, how they persevered and put in a good effort with a good attitude. And so therefore, it moves into thoughts that are when I fail, I learn. And this is so critical. So the wisdom here, very, very simple, is to give yourself permission to fail, act on those learnings, and take risks. And as I said before, as an ally to amplify women around you, you need to encourage them to get out of their comfort zones. And so that's such a critical piece. And I love this quote. You need to think about it because you need to let yourself leap, because you are guaranteed to miss 100% of the chances that you never take. All right, we're going to move into our last power move, which has to do with superpowering your network. Now, this is so critical because one of the things that I did in my book with my co-author, Rich Wellens, is we interviewed over 6 dozen leaders from around the world who were new into their first leadership job, or they'd been there for like a year, and I asked them to think back on what was some of the seminal moments and the critical things. And one of the interviews we had was with a U.S. sales director in a chemical company. And I like this second quote. What Kathy said was, I think at some point or another, you may be applying for a position, or there may be a reorganization going on, and someone's going to ask your boss or other people that you work with, what kind of person is Kathy? And can she do that job? When you get recommended for that, that is your network paying off. So this is you having sown the seeds with others in a reciprocal way that they're willing to help you. They're willing to advocate for you. They're willing to be your ally. And this is so important because some people tend to think about networking as just social media networking, like how many people you have as followers and how many you are connected with on LinkedIn, which could be 500 or more people. But how many of those people are really going to step up for you and advocate for you and be there for you to help you in these times when are needed? And this is why when you have your network, you need to think about the different roles that your network plays and the different people that are part of your network. In fact, I defined in the book, Your First Leadership Job with Rich, 6 types of networks. And let me take you through these. And by the way, while I take you through them, I'm going to have you pick another mental thing here. I'm going to have you think about which one are you strongest in and which one of those needs work. All right? So let me tell you about them. Okay, you've got your idea networks. So that's when you are working to problem solve something and you get stuck. Who's in your network that you're going to go to for new and fresh ideas to help you break through things? Those are your ideas networks. Is that one strong for you or weak? Give you another one, influence networks. Influence networks is you're trying to influence down the line. You have a number of people that you need to influence. And so sometimes your influence network can play a role in influencing others and pre-selling the idea. So therefore it flies through faster. And those are your influence networks. Think about that one. Okay, your development network. Those are the people you call upon for short time development needs. I need to learn how to tackle this computer program, or I've never run a virtual meeting before. Who do I tap into for short-term development? Then your career network is who do you call upon to say, what are my next stepping stones? Where do I go from here? So that's the 4th type of network that's there. You've got your social networks. Social networks are cohorts. And in the case I'm going to talk about is cohorts of powerful women who support each other and sometimes communicate the unwritten rules. They can be inside of the same organization or outside of the organization. But some recent research that has gone on by the University of Notre Dame has shown that when women have a powerful social network, they're actually going to excel faster in their careers. So that's critically important. The final one, arguably one of the most important, is having mentors and sponsors. Now, let me define the difference. And I'll do it here when you think about mentoring. Now, mentoring are typically formal associations that you have inside of your company that has been given to you by the company itself. So when they've been declared and you are more of a junior up-and-comer high potential and you're nominated to be paired with a senior leader, well, when you have those formal mentoring in place and they're giving you coaching, they're giving you on-the-spot opportunities, those formal mentors help you get set up to have more likely speed to promotion, more likely stretch assignments, and less barriers to growth. So it's critically important. Well, and while that sounds good, mentors are good, but here, Sylvia Ann Hewitt in the Sponsor Effect says that sponsors are better. Now, what's the difference? Mentors coach you on your in-the-moment development needs. Mentors speak to you. Sponsors advocate for you, and they speak about you when you're not in the room. So mentorship is more face-to-face. Sponsorship is what happens outside. Now, ideally, you could have a mentor who plays the sponsorship role. But when there is a defined sponsor whose job it is to get you into opportunities, get you exposure, get you networked, that has a bigger effect than simply someone who gives you coaching, as which you would get from a mentor. So the sponsor effect is so important. So let me point out the wisdom here on networking. First one, be purposeful and courageous. You can't be shy to think, well, I don't know that person. Use your network to get to that person and be courageous enough to ask. And because the payoffs are going to be incredible. But I'm going to skip to the last one for a second. Once you have been important to ask, you have to make it reciprocal. There has to be value going back and forth between you and your mentor or your sponsor or your coach, the person in your network, because it can't all be one way. If that's the case, it's going to die super fast. So you need to have valuable reciprocity in every network. And finally, here's the thing. People say, I would love to have a mentor. I would love to have a sponsor. I don't even know where to get started, and it's too big. And in fact, we did a study at DDI, and we asked, it was called, do they or don't they? Do women ask for mentorship? And one of the open-ended comments was somebody said, I think it's scary to try to ask for somebody to be my mentor or my sponsor. I mean, honestly, it's like asking somebody to be your best friend. I mean, do you walk up to somebody at work and say, hi, will you be my best friend? So I can see that it's scary, but here's how you do it. You start with micro mentoring. So do you remember the example I said earlier, which was if you ask somebody to say, hey, I need help running a virtual meeting, what coaching can you get? So that is an example of a small little micro mentoring opportunity. Well, use that to then pay them back with something. And you all of a sudden are going to be on your way to being able to be familiar with them. And you can ask them to become a mentor for you. And from mentoring, you can then move them into the sponsorship category, because all of this is so critical to being able to superpower your network and superpower yourselves and ignite the power of women around you. Now, here we have another amplify. If you are not already a mentor or a sponsor, become one. You owe it, because if you think back on what has made you successful through your career, I bet you can think of those people who went out of their way for you, spoke up for you, nominated you into areas that you never would have gotten. I know I am ever grateful for those people. And you owe it to them to do the same thing for others beneath you. So make sure that you mentor and sponsor one at a minimum or several young women in your organizations to increase the visibility with them and make sure that they are seen by key stakeholders. Give them those opportunities. It will have immeasurable impact. So this is it. I've gone through the 4 power moves to ignite impact: declare yourself, radiate confidence, fail forward, and superpower your network. So I'm going to go to one of my favorite closing quotes, and it's from Eleanor Roosevelt. A woman is like a tea bag. You never know how strong she is until she gets into hot water. And I think that's very profound, because we all don't know what we're capable of until others are our allies. Others are helping us move along with the power moves and create a different future for ourselves, our teams, and our organizations. And with that, I want to make sure that you know that all I'm asking is for you to wake up every day and be the best version of yourself that you can be. And so that closes us off. And I said I wanted you to close with a little bit of wisdom. What would you pass on to women leaders? So you have the chat function as an option, so you could type it in there. I'll see them when we're all finished with this. Another option, of course, is get on Twitter. I'm also on LinkedIn. But if you're on Twitter and you use the hashtag of Amplify Women and you tag me, Tacy Byham, we'll be able to see all the comments that have come in around this particular speech and others. And you need to honor the wisdom I've given you here and make sure that you use this incredible opportunity at the Congress to network with each other and to optimize yourself and get those power moves moving out there. So thanks and have a wonderful day.